of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, good morning. This is Arlene and you're listening to me at Durian ASEAN, where we discuss news on Southeast Asia. On our ASEAN Daily today, we start off with the GST. As we all know, in Malaysia, the GST just kick-started and a lot of people are in confusion. In fact, chaos for consumers as traders in Malaysia struggle with GST. Malaysia is the 8th countries in Southeast Asia to implement GST. As we all know, that GST has been implemented in a lot of developing countries in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, Thailand, and of course Singapore. But in Malaysia, because people are not really familiar what is goods and services tax, and there's just so many the items are rated as zero rated items, and of course there are items that and services that being GST tax. Hence a lot of confusions arises from it, and consumers in the coming probably 6 months to a year may be dealing with a chaotic scene as small and medium-sized enterprises remain uncertain on how to implement the goods and services tax. And in fact, on Twitter, there is trending of GST discussion. For example, hashtag welcome GST and hashtag replace song name with GST was trending all night. In fact, mixed comments from the public. It's crazy how we have to go ahead with it anyway. That's what a lot of public are thinking. In fact, one trader, his name is Neo, she said that she will just go with the flow come April 1st, saying that she's not sure what will happen exactly on the day GST comes, but of course as Malaysians we'll just go with the flow. And tax experts, on the other hand, have said that the implementation of the GST in Malaysia, which is at a flat rate of 6%, will cause confusion due to the long list of exemptions and zero-rated goods compared to other countries. We have 900 plus items that are being rated zero-rated, and that's just dumbfounding. I mean, you have in the list like lobsters, like fruits, and like medicines, and but you have items that are GST taxable, and a lot of the reason is because the government is trying to protect key items, especially basic goods that shouldn't be GST tax, as it will only drive up all the cost of the cost of living. So in that sense, I guess we can learn from our neighbor on how they do it. Of course, with an iron fist nation like Singapore, people will just accept whatever that it takes by the government. For Malaysia, I think people would just like the trader Neo. She will just go with the flow. I think Malaysians will just go with the flow, and we will complain if it actually drives up the cost. But the government has somehow promised that it won't cause inflation, it won't drive up the cost of living, it will in fact reduce the cost of living. I'm not sure how, and the GST will be a more organized version of the taxation system in this country. Another breaking news, and of course we reported it yesterday, but just an update about what happened yesterday at the Dang Wangi Police Headquarters. So 3 TMI editors was released, and the editors from the Malaysian Insider walked out of the Dang Wangi Police Headquarters at around 9 p.m. or 9 o'clock at night on Wednesday yesterday, and there were cheers from gathered media personnel after police failed to get a remand order on them. And the trio lawyer, Shahrizan Johan, said that on top of holding the editorial staff from TMI, the police also hauled two of the portal's sub-editors, their human resource manager and IT manager, to have their statements taken over regarding a recent article. The TMI Bahasa Malaysia editor Amin called the detention of his colleagues and himself totally unacceptable in a democratic country, saying that the editors have given full cooperation to the authorities. In fact, he doesn't think that we should have been here in the first. They should have been here in the first place, which is true. And they came. This is what he said. He said that they came to their office, but TMI personnel and staff and editors gave full cooperations, and in fact, the police called them to the station and they just went. They always cooperated. But the arrest was definitely unacceptable. There were 4 assemblymen. One of it is Lee Hua Beng, noted that, there were a few people, politicians were there, but there were also one former assemblyman, Lee Hua Beng, noted that he is a strong believer of freedom of press. Without freedom of press, society cannot progress. And definitely we agree with that at Durian ASEAN. Freedom of media is a very contentious issue. In fact, freedom of media in Malaysia has been suppressed ever since Mahathir's period, during the Operasi Lalang. Could it be a re-emergence of the Operasi Lalang? We never know. But this country's press freedom ranking has dropped tremendously ever since Najib's administration has taken over, and we see a lot of people were being arrested recently for charges like Sedition Act, and couldn't really say more about it other than it's definitely going to put a huge step back for this country in this regards. Anyway, we will take one short break. When we return, we will talk more about similar issue that is happening in Singapore, as well as some fighting that is happening in Myanmar.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. You're back again with me on news commentary regarding on Southeast Asia. So something really huge happened, and it was all over the international news. I'm talking about what had happened in Singapore. This young teenagers, only 16 years old. His name is Amos Yee. He's being infamous for posting an anti-Lee Kuan Yew rant, and because of that, Singapore court actually charges him over his YouTube rant on Lee Kuan Yew. Just a bit of a background on Amos Yee. He has a YouTube channel named after himself as well, Amos Yee. And in his YouTube channel, usually he will post a lot of his opinion on things regarding on Singapore and things that he has in mind. But recently, due to the Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's funeral and death, Amos Yee posted a rant that he is actually a rant talking about Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, the deceased founding Lee Kuan Yew, and criticizing Christianity at the same time. He actually equate Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew as Jesus, or Jesus as Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew in a way. And the video sparked a huge backlash from grieving Singaporeans, and more than 20 police reports were lodged. From what it seems like, right now he has been given a bail set at 20,000 Sing dollar, and Singapore in fact has a very strict hate speech laws strengthened under Mr. Lee's leadership. Lee Kuan Yew was deeply respected by some Singaporeans, or majority, I'm not sure, and his death last week prompted unprecedented public mourning. He was widely seen as the architect of Singapore's prosperity, but during his 31 years as Prime Minister, he also clamped down on opponents, imposed strict social rules and tight political control. From what we have received the news here, the father and of the parents of Amos Yee has in fact apologized for the expletive-laden 8-minute video which was uploaded last Friday. He was criticizing his Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's strict control of Singapore, calling him a horrible person. In fact, Singaporeans were scared to criticize Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and but he himself compared Mr. Lee Kuan Yew disparagingly to Jesus Christ. The video drew a visceral response from Singaporeans who have turned up in large numbers to mourn Mr. Lee Kuan Yew last week. Anyway, Mr. Lee subsequently took down the video, but copies has since been uploaded on YouTube. And what it seems like, Mr. Yee's appeared in court to be charged on 3 counts. One is the on 3 counts. One is deliberate intentions of wounding the religious or racial feelings of any person. Number 2 is distributing obscene material and harassment. He will face a fine and up to 3 years in jail if convicted, but he is just a minor. So I'm not sure how Singapore would actually handle a minor in this case over a YouTube posting? Isn't it a bit too much? Well, from my own perspective, I think it's a bit too much to jail a 17-year-old when he has done completely unharmed towards physically unharmed towards other people. Perhaps he has said some vulgar words. He has, as usual, teenagers say things that are just outrageous. But would it be on par with the kind of conviction the kind of jail sentences and fine that he has to face? I doubt it would. And Mr. Yee, who was originally reported to be 17, will be tried as an adult. Wow. In addition to bail, he agreed not to post any material online while the case is in progress. Speaking outside of courtroom, his father apologized to the current Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, who is Mr. Lee's son. Singapore's hate speech laws are intended to ensure harmony between its multi-ethnic population and prevent a recurrence of the racial violence of its early years. In a statement, Deputy Commissioner Tai Chai Hee said that the police take a stern view of acts that could threaten religious harmony in Singapore. In fact, on the other hand, a petition was started by a Christian Singapore has been launched calling for his release. Media rights group and committee to protect journalists said that the arrest highlights the restrictive environment in which Singaporean journalists are forced to work. In fact, Amos was one of the several people who went online to publicly criticize Mr. Lee's legacy. Others include human rights activists and a prominent poet, but he is the only one to have been arrested. What it seems by CPJ, or the Committee to Protect Journalists to Asia spokesman Bob Diaz, said that they are calling on authorities to release Amos Yee immediately and to undertake reform of Singapore's outdated laws restricting the media. It's interesting to see that both Malaysia and Singapore are having a huge curb on media freedom, and what we are seeing right now is definitely probably 10 to 20 step backwards for Malaysia and Singapore when it comes to freedom of media and freedom of expression. On another hand, news about Burma, in fact. There is fighting reported between the government and the Arakan army. Fighting broke on Sunday between government troops and the Arakan army in western Burma in what is believed to be the first time in a decade that ethnic Arakanese armed rebels in the region have come to blow with the Burma army. In fact, the fighting began at 3 o'clock in the morning, continued until 7:30 in the morning. It says that the Arakan army has suffered no casualty. The Arakan army is largely based in Liza, Kachin State, where the Kachin Independence Army, or KIA, is headquartered. But ethnic rebel soldiers from the group have begun returning to Arakan State in recent months. The Arakan army formed in 2008 and has been active in Liza, where it trains with the KIA. The Arakan army is also considered part of the nationwide ceasefire coordination team by other ethnic rebel groups, but the government does not recognize its claim to membership. Most recently, the Arakanese armed group has been the news since claiming in its involvement in the ongoing hostility in northern Burma that have primarily pitted the government against the ethnic Kokang rebels. Peace talks are due to reconvene, 2 days ago, after a 1-week pause, with the government speaking positively about prospects for a long-sought nationwide ceasefire agreement. And in fact, just talking about the breaking news, what had happened in terms of the peace talk, Myanmar army and rebels signed draft ceasefire agreement. Myanmar President Thein Sein has witnessed the signing of a draft ceasefire agreement between the government and the 16 rebel groups. The agreement, which came after 7 rounds of talks, is a significant step towards ending decades of conflicts. Negotiators from the armed rebel groups still have to consult with their leaders before giving final approval. Rebels from the newest and most active conflict in Kokang did not attend the talks. Meanwhile, there is still heavy fighting in Kokang region and there are still regular clashes in other areas. The government declared a state of emergency last 2 months ago as tens of thousands of refugees have been forced to flee their homes, some of them crossing the border into China. Myanmar has been engaged in armed conflict with various ethnic rebel groups seeking greater autonomy since independence from the British in 1948. While many have come into the political fold for peace deals, outbreaks of violence have been continued since. On the other hand, even though there are still conflict happening in different regions of Myanmar, especially in the Kokang region, we see Myanmar is moving forward in terms of increasing its economic growth as well as its investment. In fact, it is welcoming the AIIB, or it is short for the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank from China. In fact, what we are seeing right now, more and more countries, not just in Europe, but in Asia, are welcoming the AIIB. The regional China-backed bank comes just in time to help feed Myanmar's growing infrastructure appetite. Myanmar is in urgent need of funding to expand its infrastructure facilities. The country's infrastructure construction has almost stagnated in the past decades, and traffic jams are common. Overpass bridges are really important for Myanmar because roads are narrow and there are more and more cars. In fact, according to one taxi driver, Yu Mangbo, they need overpass bridges in every intersection to be convenient. sounds like a country, a city that is emerging out into a mega city. But in fact, experts say poor transportation has delayed economic development, and I would attest to that because prior to 2009, it's very rare to even see a traffic jam. But nowadays, if you go to Yangon, traffic jam is a headache. In fact, the roads are really badly designed that to go from one place to another, it is going to take you ages. If the authorities does not address this issue faster, it might lead into a situation where it becomes another Jakarta, which we would not want it to. On the other hand, despite assistance from the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank (ADB), funding is still far from enough for major road projects. The road and links China, Myanmar, and India is in discussion right now. It's important, but still need funding support from the AIIB. So I hope that this will be a new era for Myanmar in terms of trying to develop into a mega city, or a city that at least hopefully welcomes both economic progress and democracy, hopefully. We will take another one short break. When we return, we will talk about what is happening right now in Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia.
ASEAN Dailies, first and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to me again. So, talking about Vietnam, a lot of people might not know, but right now, Vietnam is entering a shoe factory strike on its fifth day, and thousands of workers at major factories in southern Vietnam went on strike for a fifth day today in protest over social insurance cover in a rare show of labor unrest. Witness in the industrialized suburbs of Ho Chi Minh City said hundreds of workers massed peacefully outside of the factory owned by Po Nguyen Vietnam, a footwear maker for firms that include Nike, Adidas, and brands like Lacoste, Converse, and Reebok. Strikes and protests are rare in the communist Vietnam, which has been tightly controlled by one party for 4 decades. Po Nguyen, which employs a close up to 80,000 workers, is controlled by Chinese shoemaker Yue Yuan Industrial Holdings. The employees are disgruntled about a social insurance law which will be taking place from 2016, which restricts the scope of entitlements for a lump sum payment if they leave. It comes as Vietnam tries to lure big firms with its cheap labor, tax breaks, and its looming accession to free trade agreement with its biggest export partners. Just a bit of a background, Vietnam is also part of RCEP as well as TPPA, and it hopes that it can somehow make the most of the free trade agreement. But at the same time, questionable human rights, especially when it comes to labor rights. And the shoe factory strikes, it definitely shows how much the people are tired against the Vietnamese government. But at the same time, the Vietnamese are opening doors to ties. Investment in Vietnam's infrastructure in the next 10 years are certain to increase demand for construction materials. Most Thai investors are investing in Vietnam to sell out only the domestic market at the moment, but a second wave will be used Vietnam as a hub to export other countries to take advantage of cheap labor costs. Again, cheap labor. And a lot of foreign companies like Samsung, Intel, Nokia have decided to set up factories in Vietnam instead of China. So in fact, what they are saying is it is a good opportunity for Thai companies to introduce new products into the consumer segment in Vietnam. With its young population and strong consumer demand, that is where the sweet spot is at the moment. Investments in Vietnam's infrastructure in the next 10 years are certain to increase demand for construction materials. So it seems like the partnership has expanded to even Thailand. I think the major lure for Vietnam is definitely the cheap labor that we can see right now, especially with the strikes that is happening there. Hopefully that things will settle between the government and, of course, the people of Vietnam, who are, of course, working really hard in the factory. On the other hand, we see countries in the Philippines and Indonesia are plagued with religious radicalism. What we are seeing right now, the development of the Muslim rebel group, Philippines just ended the offensive against the small Muslim rebel group. The Philippine military on Tuesday ended a 5-week all-out offensive against a small but violent splinter group of its largest Muslim rebel group, allowing around 90,000 displaced residents to return home. Residents of the poor marshy town of Mamansapano, Manila, chanted Allahu Akbar and applauded as the military chief said they could return to homes and farms. But the military chief said that the army continues to harm members of the Bangsa Moro Islamic freedom fighters. In fact, what we are seeing right now, that the military has killed 139 rebels, captured bomb factories, safe haven, and neutralized half of the rebel ranks, and leave them in a small splintered group. The proposed Bangsa Moro Basic Law aims at carving out a new autonomous area at the southern Philippines and giving the Muslim minority greater political and economic power. Hopefully that what is happening right now in the Philippines will be a much better progress towards peace and stability, and of course independence. Not necessarily complete independence, but I guess autonomous control over their own state of Mindanao. On the other hand, in Indonesia, things are not getting well because sons of Indonesia jihadis are flocking to Syria. What we are seeing right now is a new generation of Indonesian jihadis seems to have come of age, with the sons of several prominent jihadis leaving for war-torn Syria, lured by the promises of the Islamic State movement. In fact, at least 4 sons of famous terrorists are widely believed to have joined the two groups, in part to preserve their dad's legacy. A counter-terrorism expert Al-Chaidar said children of convicted terrorists in Indonesia could be divided into 2 camps, those that supporting IS and those that supporting Al-Nusra. Al-Nusra is Syria's Al-Qaeda affiliate. It's once more the ascendant after being eclipsed by Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, its former ally. The question now is whether Al-Nusra resurgence will strengthen or weaken the 4-year revolt against the Syrian president. So it seems like it has become more like a separatist war in Syria, besides being an ideological war among the global Muslim groups, radicalizing religion as part of their mission to expand their influence. That's all for me, and hopefully you can listen to us between Monday to Friday, and tune in to www.durianasean.com, and of course you can listen to us via the TuneIn app, which you can download on your app store and search for us at Durian ASEAN. And of course you can always engage with us via our social media on Facebook, Instagram, and of course Twitter. Thank you, and continue with our second segment today on our Durian Heat.